Hi there, I'm Alicia Davis,
And I'm Stacy Watson.
and we are executive coaches and owners of Transformative Leadership Strategies. And today we wanted to talk with you about, we're continuing our series, right, Stace? So we've been talking about managing challenging feelings these last three videos, right? And now we want to talk about the second half. So we have this webinar that we do about how do we cultivate courageous conversations. We want to just talk about
Right.
the courageous conversations part today, right?
Well, right. Because the first part is really beginning to just identify and understand some of the feelings that we're having, because oftentimes you may not be putting words to those feelings and that can get in the way. So once we're able to put words to it, then it's about how can you or how can I take that information and perhaps bring it into a conversation that might be giving me a little anxiety, right?
That's right. Because the feelings that we're having could be about anything, right? It could be about situations that are happening with our loved ones. It could be some of the things that we hear from our clients are, anxiety, frustration, anger about coronavirus or going back to work, or just a lot of fear or upset around social, racial injustice, right? It could be about anything. So it's having all of these feelings that are challenging, and we talked about noticing and breathing and making space for them. And now, so now once we've done that, okay, now I got to go talk to you if I'm having, if you are somebody that I'm having a difficulty with. Now I have to be responsible and say, okay, I need to go figure this out with Stacy. So now we got to talk about, so what does it really mean to have a courageous conversation? What is that?
Well, and if you're listening right now, I might encourage you to hit pause and just reflect on maybe a conversation that you're thinking about having, or that you know you have to have, that you could really be thinking about as we talk about this. I think for me, a brave or courageous conversation, the first flag you kind of mentioned, Alicia, it's when I feel a little anxiety about it, right? I maybe am a little bit preoccupied with it. It's not as simple as where, what are we going to eat for dinner? Or I was
Right.
going to say, where would we go to the movies, but we're not doing that anymore.
No, we're
But,
not doing that
we have
anymore.
lots of conversations that are fairly straightforward. And these conversations are different for me because I feel them in my body in a different way, right?
Yes. And they're often about bigger issues, right? They might be about politics. They might be, a lot of it could be around your core values. We talk a lot about values, but when you're having a big feeling, it's usually that a value, maybe it's something around honesty, or maybe it's something around speaking truth or integrity. Like something has happened with another person where your value, you feel like you haven't been able to live it the way you want to. So it's definitely deeper.
Yeah, for sure. So what we thought we would do today is talk a little bit about what gets in the way, right? And you've sort of touched on that, Alicia, by just talking about these are often kind of meatier, more sensitive topics. And so one of the things that can get in the way is just frankly fear or anxiety, or that feeling of I don't really want to have that
I
conversation
don't
with
want it,
them.
right. I don't want to have it. I'm just gonna, ignore it. Or, sometimes the feelings, again, this is why we talked about the feelings in the beginning, is, sometimes we just mentally shut down. Or we're, it might be like, when's the right time? Right? Or it might be, we're in, let's say, with a team, and there are so many differing, perhaps, opinions about something that it just feels like so chaotic. We just don't even know how to even begin to have a conversation like that.
Right. So, today we wanted to share with you some elements that are included in these kinds of conversations.
That's right.
These are things that I think can be helpful to think about in preparing for a conversation like that. So, the first one I think is pretty profound. And it's really this idea that we're starting from a place of self-awareness versus self-protection. And this
Yes.
has to do with our defense mechanisms, right?
That's
Like,
right. That's right.
I mean, it makes sense. We talk about it a lot, this natural state that we have to be defensive when we have anxiety.
That's right. We're going to shut down. We're going to pull back. We're going to put the walls up. We've all done it. We all have our own ways of doing it. And it's really, this is really the biggest part of this work, I think, is how can we be self-aware and be able to be a little bit vulnerable, right? This is where our, where we love Brene Brown, right? Like,
Yes.
how can we feel this way and still be a little bit vulnerable?
Right. So if, for instance, you are really having some courageous or hard conversations or thinking about those related to going back to work or potentially opening your program in a bigger way, and there's anxiety around that, I think really being able to go into those conversations with understanding that there is anxiety and giving space to that can be a really powerful place to start.
For sure. And we've already touched on another part of what are the elements is knowing your values, knowing
Yes.
what's important to you, knowing what's important for the team, knowing what's important for the organization. Again, if it's an organizational kind of issue, how do you align with those values? And that, and again, just this idea of staying open, right?
Yes.
Not going into that self-protection reaction mode, but just as much as possible, breathing, trying to stay really present, trying to stay as open-minded as possible. And our last one thing that we love to also say is what, Stace?
To be curious. I
Exactly.
know often when we have these conversations with clients, one of the questions they'll ask is, but I know the outcome, right? I know we are opening our program or we are bringing people back to
That's
the
right.
office,
That's
right?
right.
And that's fine. I mean, this is not about not being able to reach an outcome that it's really about the spirit that you're going into the conversation, and to be
That's
able
right.
to really make space and to be curious about the experience of the other person just softens things a bit to allow for potentially an outcome that everyone can feel a little bit more calm or peace about.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So we hope that you have found this helpful. We certainly would love to hear from you. If you have questions, info@tlstransforms.com. And be brave enough to start a conversation that matters.
Yes. Have a great week and thank you so much.
Bye bye,
Bye bye.
everyone.